50 Cent just dropped a clip on Instagram that instantly set the internet on fire. In the video, Gene Deal pulls the curtain back on one of Diddy's most tightly guarded secrets, an alleged relationship nobody was supposed to know about. And this isn't an isolated name either. According to insiders, the list of people Diddy was secretly involved with is growing fast. And some of those names are about to shock a lot of people. Gene starts by describing a moment that was never meant to go public. A guy shows up at the door claiming he's there to see his cousin. Gene asks who, and the answer catches him off guard. He says Ja. Gene tells him straight up, Ja's busy right now. The guy presses, asking busy doing what? That's when Gene makes it clear. Ja and Puff are locked in a room. Door closed. No interruptions. They don't want to be disturbed. But the guy doesn't listen. He tries to force his way past Gene. Big mistake. Gene grabs him and slams him into a piano. The noise sends shockwaves through place. Seconds later, the door swings open. Puff rushes out with a towel barely wrapped around him. Ja follows, also scrambling to cover up. Everything about the moment screams panic. People start asking questions. The cousin tries to smooth it over, saying John knows him, that it's all good. Puff looks confused, asking what just happened. Gene tells him the truth. He tried to get into the room after being told not to. Puff doesn't argue. He just looks at Ja. That look said everything. Someone even mutters that he didn't want to walk in there anyway, because way too much was going on behind that door. Gene Deal then connects the dots, explaining this wasn't some random moment. He says Diddy spending private, locked in time with Ja Rule wasn't accidental. And the craziest part? The beginning of the story is wild, but it still doesn't explain the real reason behind it. Because when it comes to Diddy, nothing is random. Everything is calculated, even getting caught. And if you're wondering what was really happening behind the scenes, Gene gives a glimpse that makes the whole situation darker. He recalls walking into a shop where Ja was clearly a regular. The staff didn't ask questions. They handed over a brown paper bag, like this was routine. Puff starts casually grabbing items off the shelves, dropping them into the bag like he's done 100 times before. Gene follows a few feet back, watching closely. At one point, Puff reaches high up on a shelf and starts pulling down multiple items. A lot of them. Gene looks up and sees exactly what they are. Adult items. He jokes, asking what all that stuff is for. Puff snaps back, asking if he can shop in peace. Gene backs off and waits at the counter. That's when it gets even stranger. Puff walks up, drops a thick stack of cash on the counter, and the clerk doesn't even look inside the bag. No questions, no surprise, just business as usual. Like this had happened plenty of times before. Let that sink in. Diddy wasn't just buying adult items for Ja. This was a routine. The cashier knew. The store knew. Nobody blinked. And that alone confirms what Gene was saying from the start. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a rumor. This was a pattern. And it raises one disturbing question. How many more moments like this never made out? According to Gene, none of this was an accident. Diddy wasn't afraid of being exposed. He was setting the stage for it. And it all circles back to why he wanted Ja close in the first place. While they were together, Diddy kept steering the conversation in one direction. Jay-Z, over and over. He was hyping Ja up, pushing buttons, talking reckless, claiming that without him, Jay wouldn't even be who he is today, saying he helped shape Jay's early career, wrote things behind the scenes, opened doors when nobody else cared. Diddy kept repeating it, drilling it in. He wasn't venting. He was planting seeds. By the time they reached the hotel, the energy had shifted. Presidential suite. Doors closed. No witnesses. Gene says that's when it clicked. Ja wasn't there as a friend. He was there as a chess piece. Diddy wanted leverage. And the wild party inside that room wasn't about pleasure. It was about control. Even Ja seemed confused by how far things went. Gene later revealed there were women inside the room too, and one of them wasn't random at all. It was Sarah Chapman, one of Diddy's baby mothers. And that choice? Completely intentional. Sarah had history, not just with Diddy, but with Tupac. Bringing her into that room was another calculated move. A quiet act of disrespect layered on top of everything else. Gene makes it clear, whatever happened in that room crossed lines Ja didn't expect. He even warned people afterward that they didn't want to know what was really going on in there. Too much, too strange, way beyond normal. Gene says the internet twisted his words later, cutting clips to make it seem like Diddy and Ja were alone. That wasn't true. There were women there, but that doesn't make it any less disturbing. Gene repeats it again to shut down rumors. It was Sarah Chapman and another woman. And for people who don't know, Sarah wasn't just anybody. Before she was connected to Diddy, she had ties to other major names, including Tupac. Gene says whatever happened that night was between them, but the bigger picture matters more. This is how Diddy operates. He places people, situations, and temptations exactly where he needs them to be to get the outcome he wants. The goal was simple: push Ja toward Jay-Z. Whether Ja willingly stepped into it or got caught in something he didn't fully understand, Gene says he doesn't know. He doesn't claim to know the full history of Ja and Jay's issues. But he does know this. On that specific day, Diddy was actively trying to turn Ja into a weapon. And once Gene's story went public, Ja did something telling. He disappeared, went quiet, laid low. Academics picked up on it, saying this looked less like a scandal and more like an attempted power play. Diddy using a compromising moment to keep someone in line. Ja Rule eventually responded himself, firing off tweets aimed straight at 50 Cent. He accused 50 of not caring about victims and said everyone already knows why that documentary was made, pointing to their long-running beef. But even in his defense, something fell off, because now people are starting to realize something bigger. The 90s weren't just wild, they were reckless. And back then, everyone thought time would bury it. But there's no expiration date on truth, no statute of limitations on patterns. And the more these stories surface, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't chaos. It was strategy. That's when the tone of the conversation changes. Someone finally says what everyone's been thinking. A lot of people were involved in things they don't want revisited. Names were mentioned, and then those names vanished. No public appearances, no interviews, no casual link-ups. It's like the entire circle went into hiding overnight. The brunches stopped. The hangouts disappeared. Silence took over. Ever since Gene Deal mentioned Ja Rule coming out of that situation looking shaken, people haven't seen him the same way. And that raises an uncomfortable question. What does Ja really think now? Because even if he's your guy, the situation puts you in an impossible spot. The consensus is clear. Saying anything right now only makes things worse. In this era, every word gets twisted. You explain yourself, and suddenly people assume guilt. You stay quiet, and they assume you're hiding something. Even if the truth is that those kinds of parties were normalized back then, that explanation doesn't help. People hear that and translate it into, so everyone was doing what Diddy was doing. Either way, you lose. So most of them chose silence. Then another name enters the picture, and it hits even harder. The second person tied to Diddy in these conversations is Meek Mill. And what makes this even stranger is that the story almost involved 50 Cent himself. Diddy allegedly invited 50 out on a shopping trip, something that immediately raised red flags. 50 declined. But after that rejection, Diddy allegedly extended the same invitation to Meek. And this time, the answer was different. 50 laughs it off now, but he points out something people can't ignore. Meek shows up publicly wearing the same outfit as Diddy. Same look, same energy, and that detail alone set the internet on fire. Because if Meek was uncomfortable, why didn't he react the way 50 did? 50 doesn't sugarcoat it. He says certain lines shouldn't even be crossed in conversation, let alone action. Matching outfits, shopping trips, situations that feel way too familiar. He jokes, but the message underneath is serious. Those aren't coincidences. Meek has denied the rumors from day one, but the optics didn't help him. Unlike Ja's situation, Meek allegedly didn't even need Diddy to provide anything. According to insiders, Meek handled things himself, and somehow ended up exposing more than he intended to afterward. People started digging. Social media activity, likes, patterns, things that didn't align with the image he was presenting publicly. And once that door opened, there was no closing it. 50 makes it plain. No man he knows is stepping out in matching fits, entertaining those dynamics, or letting certain lines blur. He says he's seen enough behind the scenes to know when something doesn't feel right. And what's been surfacing lately? It doesn't feel normal. It feels hidden. It feels like things people hope would stay buried forever. And that's the real tension now. Not just who is involved, but who's next to be named. One thing keeps bothering people who watch this closely. Meek never once came out and flat out said the allegations were false. Not even once. No clear denial. No direct shutdown. And that silence, it spoke louder than anything he could have said. Someone points out plainly, if Meek denied it outright, what would surface next? Footage. That's the fear. Because according to insiders, Diddy didn't just live lavishly. He documented everything. Cameras everywhere. Every corner. Every room. And the more Meek tries to separate himself from Diddy publicly, the more it feels like something keeps pulling him back into the narrative. Back in November, Meek even released a video trying to draw a hard line. He looked straight into the camera and said it, "No Diddy gang." Loud, clear, public. But instead of clearing his name, it only made people more suspicious. Because why was he working so hard to distance himself when others stayed quiet? Since the moment his name was mentioned, Meek hasn't stopped tweeting. Other celebrities were named too, but none of them reacted like this. None of them seemed this anxious, this defensive, this active. And that raised a question nobody wanted to ask out loud. Was Meek overreacting because he had something to hide? People bring up the clip again. Meek walking around, repeating it. No Diddy, no Diddy gang. Almost like he's trying to convince himself as much as the public. But critics say you can't erase a moment that already exists, especially when there are photos of matching outfits floating around. You can't tweet your way out of optics like that. What made it sting even more is that, to some, Meek didn't just look like an associate. He looked like a real friend. And that's when the hard truth drops. There are no real friends in the industry. Just alliances. Just leverage. Just silence when it benefits you. And that silence, it's everywhere now. People believe there are only 3 reasons for it. 1, some folks are scared their own past might come back to haunt them. Skeletons stay quiet. 2, some of them were actually present at those parties, participating in things they don't want revisited. And 3, the rest are waiting to see how this ends. Because no one wants to pick the wrong side if Diddy somehow survives it. That's why Meek can't escape the association. And constantly tweeting about Diddy only tightens the spotlight. Meek claims there's a smear campaign against him. He says people are deliberately tying his name to Diddy to take him down. He frames it as an attack on successful black rappers. And he says he's ready to uncover who's behind it. He even puts money on it. $100,000 cash. He says he wants a full investigation. How his name ended up connected to the lawsuit. Who's pushing the media narratives. Who's pulling the strings. He keeps repeating the same phrase. Something isn't right. Meek points to his journey. From Philly streets to millionaire. From rapper to criminal justice reform advocate. From outsider to industry bridge. He says that kind of rise makes enemies. And enemies don't need guns anymore. They run campaigns. He also directly addresses rumors about his sexuality, tweeting that he has every right to defend his manhood and won't tolerate anyone playing with his name. But instead of calming things down, each response adds another layer to the story. Then he doubles down, again offering the reward, again insisting the streets know the truth, again claiming this is business, not scandal, and again saying someone is funding these narratives. And just when it seems like the story can't get more complicated, another name surfaces. Someone who didn't deny anything. Someone who openly admitted there was intimacy. Kirk Burroughs. Gene Deal believes Kirk and Diddy weren't just close. They were secretly involved. And according to Gene, the reason Kirk stepped forward now isn't guilt. It's resentment. Because loyalty was broken. And when love turns into anger in this industry, silence finally breaks. Puff used to do, they didn't talk about. This, he used to do the building. Daddy's house, whereas it signed. Rappers, and signed you, and signed artists, would rap at this place, and it was called the building on Monday nights. Then he would do the red zone on Wednesday. I would have to go with him and make sure that he was all right and take the money to Kirk Burroughs' house after the red zone. But I didn't think nothing at the time. At that time, I didn't think nothing of it that he was spending a night with Kirk Burroughs either every Wednesday night. He got a whole girl at home, but he's spending the night with Kirk Burroughs. He's staying at Kirk house. Like, yo, all right, cool. Didn't think nothing of it. Didn't think nothing of it. And then Kirk had made a mention to some people over the years that him and Puff used to wake up and pray together. And I'm in my mind, I know he's talking about saying prayers and all that underscore like that. But in my other mind, I'm thinking you waking up with a dude praying, going on. Then there was a situation that somebody said long time ago in the office. They caught Kirk giving Puff AIO in the office. Now that was the rumor that was going around. How true it is. They was lovers. It came out in his lawsuit. He tried to say that Puff was what he's saying. Gene saw how Kirk would behave around Diddy and the fact that they were sleeping together. Diddy and Kirk weren't even trying to hide it. Gene actually said that Kirk was in love with Diddy, and it's probably why he signed over a stake in Bad Boy to Diddy. If somebody how you let them come, stay at your house every Wednesday night after the club, I think they were boyfriends. You know, I think my honest opinion, I think Kirk was in love with Puff to a certain degree and Puff was using him. Kirk was giving up the beanut to him. Anything Puff asked him to do, he would do. You know, he'd go at people. He'll talk. Cuck could talk to you on the behalf of Puff. And I believe that was his man to a certain degree in his mind. And the way he acts and the way he was saying underscore on that documentary, you could feel that they had a relationship. The most shocking name on this list is someone who you might have never guessed, and that's Diddy's mom. Allegedly, Diddy had an inappropriate relationship with his mom. But why you believe she knew about the freakos? 'Cause one of the witnesses said she was there. And do you remember this, bro? Check it out. People tell off on themselves so much, man. And I don't understand when people don't catch it. Diddy has said this. He said, when I give a party, I have to have an ambulance outside of the house. Paramedics ready. That people have to take IVs. Remember the time that him and his mama kissed each other on the lips? Yeah, I remember that video. Do you remember that both of them was getting a four at the same time? Yeah, I did notice that. Yep, that's from the Diddy freak off party. And I'm gonna say allegedly. So let me ask you this. You knowing her, at one point you knowing her personally, is she the kind of person that you know will be a part of a freak off or no? I think that she liked to party and she party with young people. She's always been like that. She always copied or emulated Little Kim and Mary J. Blige, or they emulated her. The blonde hair, to the nails, to the high boots, the age-appropriate, inappropriate clothing. The shocking thing here is that after Diddy's father died, his mother actually started telling Diddy how he was the man of the house. And according to reports from some of Diddy's closest childhood friends, Diddy actually developed an inappropriate relationship with his mother. Gondil even told everyone that he suspected that there was more to Diddy's relationship with his mother than meets the eye. Diddy's mom knew that Diddy was running freak-offs because, now that I'm older, I know exactly what it is. It's a paper trail so nothing can come. Bite me. If you come for me, you ain't coming for me. I ain't got nothing. You going to my mama. Good luck with that. One thing is clear. If Diddy had gotten a fair trial, his sentence would have been much longer. One of the jurors was reportedly a fan of Diddy and it's hard to believe that didn't affect how she viewed him during the trial. The idea that a juror could separate celebrity worship from serious allegations already raises serious questions about how impartial that process really was. And the juror 106, that goofy black sheep, they sitting there, and when they ask about him making eye contact or about him looking at the jury, they both lied. In my opinion, they both lied. The way when it asked, well, did he ever make eye? No. That no, well, see, they gave instructions and said you can't look at him. But the girl sat there and was talking about how he would look over at the jury because he forgot where he was, and then how sometimes he would nod and do this, but you said that he never looked over at the jury, that you said that you never made eye contact with him. And then she starts talking about, yeah, because I just think that he nods back and forth because he always used to do that. If you were never a fan of him, if you were only a fan of the artist and you were never a fan of him and you were never paying and then the way they were able to edit in him, nodding back and forth during making the band and all of that, it's just kind of wild to me that nobody is seeing exactly how compromised these jurors are. This isn't just about one documentary or one exposed relationship. It's about how power, celebrity, and silence allowed this to go on for so long, and how uncomfortable the truth becomes once people stop looking away. If more insiders keep talking, this story is far from over. If you want to stay ahead of every new development, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.